Okay, what's that I hear? Interview Tom Paxton, sound roll number 5. Camera roll number 9? 9. Thank you. And rolling into it. On transcription and sound speed.
Let's see, are you blocking light? Oh, you are. That's
I
what it
am.
is. Yeah, okay, go ahead and play it.
Okay, take 4, roll 9, Paxton.
Go ahead.
Okay, let's return a moment to Dylan. And I don't want any historical revisionism here. I want to know what was the take on him generally in the scene in terms of his artistic.
Tom Paxton?
Yeah.
I see a problem. Hey,
Oh, there.
yeah, see the French flag?
Sorry,
Yeah,
John.
better around in front of the light. There you go. Whoop, right there.
Right there.
Take a little more. Yeah,
Got it?
all right.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Tell me you're right.
You still rolling, Dave?
Yeah,
Okay.
cut it, Dave. Can you drop that flag down?
Sure.
The light's not on it.
All ready?
And we need sticks.
What?
You need some sticks. Slap your hand.
Oh, that's what that thing is. That little...
Ah,
Okay, go ahead, just mark.
5.
5, that was 5.
5.
Okay.
Okay. What was the take on Dylan artistically in 1961, winter, spring? He arrived on the scene from the folks generally.
Well, I mean, what you've heard is true. Of course, these things get compressed in memory, but my take on it was that almost instantly, I mean, in a matter of days, Dylan was the topic of conversation. I remember the now totally forgotten song of his called "I Will Not Go Down Under the Ground," which was about the air raid drills that were mandatory, and people got arrested and sent to Rikers Island for not going down in the subways and stuff. And he wouldn't do it. I mean, he wrote this song, and it instantly shot to the top of the Village Hit Parade. And so it became where a new Dylan song would be excitedly discussed. Arguments immediately about whether he was, just slavishly copying Woody Guthrie, which I never saw. Jack Elliott did Woody Guthrie real accurately. Dylan was simply tremendously influenced by him. He wasn't copying Woody's vocal style or anything, in my opinion. But he was he was a magnet for attention right from the beginning.
I gather from what I've heard that his performing style was very different from what it became. The angry young man or the sullen character on stage who doesn't talk much with the audience. I understand there's very different balance to what you want.
Well, he never talked much with the audience, but he was very funny. He was very. I mean, I remember adjectives like Chaplin-esque being used, and not inappropriately either. I mean, he had a lot of funny songs. He had a kind of a ragtime thing called "If I Had It to Do All Over, I'd Do It All Over You." It was funny. It wasn't great art, but it was a good song. And I guess Bob doesn't do a lot of funny stuff now, but he did then.
Did you know Carolyn Hester well?
Carolyn Hester. Carolyn Hester is a dear friend of both my wife's and mine. She had such a gorgeous voice. Still does. I just saw Carolyn a couple weeks ago in Austin at a big Nancy Griffith concert where we were guests. Carolyn always had this gorgeous high voice, but she also had a mid-range, a lower kind of an alto range that you don't hear a lot of, and that it was always, to me, the most exciting part of her singing. But then she kind of just left and went back to Texas and then out to California and got married and just kind of dropped off the full circuit.
I'm wondering if you had any sense of what happened to her career. I've discovered there's a lot of commentary, at least nowadays, looking back at that time, that says that while you could have 7 guys on a bill, you could only have two women. There was room for Joan Baez. There might have been room for Judy Collins.
Yeah.
And Carolyn Hester got squeezed because there wasn't room for three. I saw an ad for Electra, which said, for a Judy Collins record, which said, there are two great women folk singers. Judy Collins is one of them. It never named the other one. Was there a sense that was that a problem?
I think so. I think it's just it's sexism. You know, it was chauvinism. I think it was really unfair on Carolyn because she was the first. She was there before Joan or Judy. And for God's sake, we need all the great voices we can get. So I think I was a little busier with my own life than I should have been to take real cognizance of that. But I think definitely Carolyn got squeezed, got the short end of things, and she shouldn't have. There should have been all three of them up there.
Another major guy on the scene was Phil Oakes, of course, who arrived in '62, I believe. Do you recall the start of your relationship with him at all? How you met him?
Oh, I remember it exactly. I think I met Phil a day or so after he came from Ohio. Somebody, I forget who it was, came in the Gaslight and said, "Come on, after your set, come on, I want you to meet someone." So we went around the corner onto West 3rd, and there was a basket house up there, and Phil was singing, and I heard him do a few songs, and then his set was over, and the guy introduced us, and I think we went for a beer or something, and we became friends, and we were friends until he died. He was a good friend too. Phil was a mercurial guy. Of course, part of that was rooted in the depression that killed him. But he had big swings. But if he liked you, that was it. He was your friend. He would argue with you all night long. He would argue with every point you brought up, but that didn't mean that you weren't his friend. He was tremendously ambitious. Newsflash, who wasn't? We were all terribly ambitious, and Phil was very upfront about it. I'll never forget a night at the Kettle of Fish, which was his bar next door to and upstairs from the Gaslight, where we had kind of a permanently rotating table. And the first night that Phil said what I gather has become a famous Phil quote about he'd been thinking it over, and what he really wanted to do was to be a cross between Elvis and Che Guevara. That's what he wanted. He wanted the popularity of Elvis and the radical politics of Che.
It's said of him, perhaps in retrospect, that he was consumed with insecurities and both jealousy and idol worship or love-hate relationship with Bob Dylan. Any sense of that evidence back then?
Was Phil insecure? Was Phil Oakes insecure? Would someone please show me a performer who isn't? All performers are insecure. It's redundant. Yeah, Phil was very insecure, and he did have a love-hate relationship with Dylan. Of the two, the love was far stronger, if you ask me. He really loved Bob and loved his work, admired him enormously, felt a rivalry with him, and knew that he could never match Bob for sheer talent. Talent's something that you can't work to get. You got it or not, and Bob had it. Furthermore, Bob worked, so there was no chance for Phil to match Bob. But what he did in trying to match Bob was put out a hell of a lot of really good songs.
Let's switch gears to something you alluded to a moment ago, which was the Kettle of Fish. And the question I want to ask is, where were where the hardcore bullshitting and arguments take place? What were the back rooms and the offices of these street urchins who were playing music?
Speaking of the Kettle of Fish, my wife told me that in the ladies' room at the Kettle of Fish there was a graffiti. What's the singular of graffiti? A graffiti that said, "Tom Rush is an easy lay," and underneath it someone had scrawled, "No, he isn't."
Has that been resolved?
I don't know, not by me. The Kettle of Fish was, I mean, you don't give any much thought to something like that when you're going through it. It's where you go to wet your whistle. I know that the jukebox had Caruso on it and Piaf, and it was also the first jukebox to have the Beatles. And we had this table, kind of permanent table up front, easiest to get into and out of, to get back down and do another set or something. And around that table on a given night would be Dylan Oakes, Eric Anderson, Patrick Sky, Dave Van Ronk, did I say Phil would be there? All of us would be there in rotations, in and out. And the great debate would continue about, one big industrial union or Castro versus Kennedy or you name it.
Also, another thing you've mentioned to us in conversation was 190 Waverly Place.
190 Waverly Place was an apartment building where Van Ronk lived on the third floor and Barry Kornfeld lived on the ground floor. Now, Barry was a fabulous instrumentalist and played with me on the first several albums I did for Elektra. Played with a lot of people, and also did a solo spot. So between Barry and Van Ronk, people were always at 190 Waverly Place. We'd have these Monopoly games. We had these Monopoly games that would go for days. I mean, Van Ronk's the kind of guy that, Monopoly wasn't quite insane enough for him. So he and a friend of his invented something called corporate Monopoly.
That's the end of camera roll number 9. Camera roll number 10 is up on take 5. Do we have 6 up or 5 up? I'm sorry.
Oh, wait till you hear. I mean,
Some of the accounting programs that you can buy for $100.
Okay, this is Paxton takes 6 up.
Yeah.
Paxton takes 6
Well, this,
on camera roll number 10.
screen formatting word processor was about $350. But it would format your screenplay precisely the way studios want to read it. And to avoid, you would avoid being instantly figured as an amateur by your formatting. So I guess if you want to write screenplays, you got to have something like that.
Okay, Davey?
I think I'm the last person to write a screenplay. I haven't.
You haven't done it yet?
Had no.
You must. Yep.
I figure someone will finally get curious, why not, and pay me a lot of money. Right?
Okay.
Mark.
Roll 10.
Corporate Monopoly.
The thing I remember most about 190 was up in Van Ronk's apartment. I guess the devil got a hold of idle hands, and Van Ronk decided that Monopoly was not demanding enough. I think it's good enough for most of us, but Van Ronk decided that he could improve it, and so he and a friend of his invented corporate Monopoly, in which you could jointly hold a property or a series of, a set of properties. You could, and depending on who was the majority or minority stockholder, and I mean, you had to draw up a contract. And this takes time. These games lasted for days. And the basic thing about corporate monopoly is it turned out that it was impossible to win or to lose. You could not lose, you could not win, but sure killed the time when you weren't organizing a union.
Was there a lot of informal playing going on out of the clubs, people trying songs?
Oh yeah. Sometimes to the point of agony, but mostly it was a matter of trying out new songs on one another. And what it really was we imposed on one another a lot. I got a new song, man. You want to listen to this? Sure. Sing me your new song. But I think basically people were kind to one another about that and very supportive. I mean, very seldom did someone say, "I'm sorry, man, but your song really sucks." It just won't. You didn't hear that a lot, even though most of the time they did. Most of the time the songs are not very good.
Who were your teachers when you got to the village? I'm talking musically. Where did you learn your lore, your technique from?
Well, whatever technique I have, I basically acquired by osmosis, learning a lick at a time from someone. How did you do that? You know, I learned a lot that way. I remember once. I think about the only formal lesson I had, and I wish I'd taken a lot, but I only had one lesson. I went to Van Ronk one day, who's a very good teacher, and Dave, in an hour that must have been one of the worst of his life, managed to get me into what is called three-finger picking. And a three-finger picking, you basically, with the alternating beats of your thumb, you set up the rhythm. And then with the two fingers, you are playing either with that rhythm or against it in syncopation. And that is the foundation of a lot of what we do. But it means that your hand has got to remember two things at once. One is the thumb has got to keep going like a metronome. The thumb never stops. And the fingers have got to know that sometimes they play with and sometimes against. So it's not easy to get over that hump. Well, in an awful hour, he got me doing it. That night at the Gaslight, I got up and the first song I sang was The Golden Vanity, key of G. And with an inward, ta-da, I started playing. I played it in three-finger picking. And I got into about the middle of the second verse. And there are more than two verses in The Golden Vanity. There are many verses in The Golden. I got this middle of the second verse, and my hand started to cramp because it wasn't used to doing this. I don't know how I got through that song. I mean, my hand was screaming by the time I finished. Somehow I got through, and I've been using that ever since. But that's how you learn, mainly from one another.
In terms of studying genres of music, styles, I've heard, for instance, that the Harry Smith anthology was very influential. Did you get in at all to old 78's Library of Congress recordings, and did folks teach you that? Who brought those onto the scene, or and what did you listen to, if anything?
Now, everybody had them. I didn't listen to the 78s. What I did was listen to the 33 and a third reissues, like the anthologies that Folkways put out. They had like a 3-volume, 9-record folk songs of America. I listened to them a lot, and a lot of these ethnic recordings were around, and we learned a lot of songs from damn near source material. I mean, from sure enough guys who played it where it was and were recorded in the field. We learned a lot of songs that way.
Did you begin to develop an appreciation that you didn't have before of folk music as a genre as opposed to popular music? Did you get into those distinctions at all?
I drew those distinctions between folk music and pop music right from the beginning. I mean, way before I even knew you called them folk songs, I knew that these were different songs. I knew that The Fox Went Out on a Chilly Night was a special song. Later I learned that they called them folk songs. They were songs that people sang. Nobody knew where they came from or who made them up or anything, but they were songs that just kind of belonged to everybody. And we all knew Jimmy Crack Corn and, several hundred other songs. I mean, most people would know more of these things than they realized they knew. And I always kind of had a special place in my heart for that kind of music. Even when I was growing up and liked pop music of the day, God help me, Patti Page and this awful stuff that we had when I was a kid. And I always loved classical music, but I always had a reserved corner that I kept adding to of these songs when I'd hear them. I remember a time on the campus at University of Oklahoma, a friend of mine named Steve Brainerd, a wonderful singer, sang a song called The Frozen Logger, which I thought was so funny, so droll. And I made him stand on the sidewalk and recite it to me while I wrote it down quickly, so I had all the words for it, and I just absorbed them. So I knew they were folk songs. They weren't pop songs. Even when there'd be a pop recording of them, that was fine. I remember being upset with the Kingston Trio when they changed the words to Shenandoah for, I guess it was their third album. I now know that you do that kind of thing to get a new copyright. But I didn't like it. To me, it wasn't Shenandoah.
You've alluded to some of your political discussions, and you've written a great many political songs. What was Did your political consciousness really come about in those early days in the village? And who were your teachers or co-conspirators, as it were?
I don't know whether I ever developed political consciousness so much as a political conscience. I think a lot of us were developing the latter in the 60s. When we saw young black students being beat on the head for sitting down in a Woolworth luncheonette, that was politics, yeah, but it was also wrong. It was just flat out wrong, and it didn't have any place in the America that we believed in. And when we went to war in Vietnam, we don't have to rehash the whole Vietnam question right now, but to me it was wrong. I never had a great knowledge of the inside workings and of political theory. I'm not a Jeffersonian. I'm not a Marxist. I don't understand a lot of theory. I'm fairly average, I think, in that. But I like to believe that if I think about it, I can figure out right from wrong.
You talked about some political discussions that went on. Who were the most vocal politically in the village of the early 60s among your crowd?
Who were the most vocal political voices among our crowd? No contest. Van Ronk and Phil. And of course, they were, bitter political enemies. No one's worse enemies than people who are fairly close to you in opinion, but not exactly close to you. Dave belonged to some cockamamie little political party that was, about 40 people who were going to change the world, and they would read 40-page declamations at their meetings, and then blood would spill. These guys really took it seriously. Politics was no drug could possibly have done for them what their political opinions did. I thought it was kind of funny myself. I loved it. I loved listening to these guys yell at each other, and they never invited my opinion because I didn't have much to say.
Well, you did do a lot of political writing.
I did a lot of political writing, but I wonder whether it was. I think it was more from an outraged sense of conscience or morals than anything else. I don't know if there is a political system better than the one we're using that'll actually get in place. I do know that we seem to find some really spectacularly inappropriate people to run it. But I don't want to go into politics myself. I don't have a lot to say about it.
Were you conscious of the political or topical, perhaps more apt, topical writers of the past? The songs of Woody Guthrie or the Almanac Singers and what they did? Did you have a knowledge of that? Did you feel you were part of any tradition in that regard?
Oh yeah, I've always felt part of a tradition in practically everything I've written. To me, it seems to be in a line with what's gone before me. The old line about standing on the shoulders of giants. Certainly, when it came to writing political songs, Woody Guthrie was my great example. Almanac Singers, Pete Seeger, the Weavers. I discovered those songs when I was in college, and actually listening to the Weavers at Carnegie Hall album. That was my road to Damascus. It just knocked me off my feet, and the conviction in those songs was I loved. I thought, here are people who are not afraid to say what they think in song and be musical at the same time. This is not propaganda. This is trenchant music. It's great.
You published a lot. Okay.
Your timing is impeccable.
Okay, this is the end of sound roll number 5, end of sound roll number 5, end of camera roll number 10. That's What's That I Hear interview with Tom Paxton, 15 May 1993. End of sound roll number 5.